welcome back to Shit They Don't Tell You. I'm Nikki Limo.
I'm Steve Green.
And today we have our special guest, Leslie WOLFF, with us. She's a casting director, a comedian, an instructor of funny. Thank you for being here, Leslie.
It is my distinct pleasure.
Yeah.
Leslie, you don't remember me, but you taught me stand-up. You're my first stand-up teacher when I first moved to LA.
I do remember you, and I never forget an essence
I doubt you remember
of
me.
stardom like you have.
Okay, true. True. I'll give you that.
I'm not kidding.
That's good.
Essence of
That's good.
stardom.
You
It
said-
could be a new cologne.
Yeah, that's really nice. It
I
works
can
on
say
I
that
me.
to
just love you
anyone,
because
too.
I'll say real quickly. Are we allowed to? Do we have an endorsement
Go
deal?
ahead. Yeah.
I got the
We have an
world's
endorsement deal for Pepsi, but go ahead with the Coke.
Yeah, please. It's fine.
world's biggest Diet Coke, which is like literally better than like happening upon a crack house for a crack addict, because at my place, my baby daddy will only let me have the mini ones, not a normal can even, but the mini ones, which is like a half a glass of Diet Coke, and that just
That's a
ain't right.
teaser.
And those are like $4. The deal is not there.
It's not cost effective.
That's like
Exactly.
letting someone touch one boob. It's like
I remember
true.
those days.
That's sad.
when you can use
You
your
can touch
body
one.
As a monetization device. That's
I
right.
do that.
You can.
Nikki's a great example for
I'm like,
everyone.
you clean the kitchen, you can see both.
That's right. That's true.
That's a good
I
deal.
will let you touch both.
It is true.
Yeah, we Leslie and I recently worked on a movie together, and I thought you were so funny in the
Thank
scenes,
you.
especially when you were allowed to improv. I thought that really showed off your comedic abilities, and I love it. And I had also. Steve said he took a class with you, and I had seen frequently. I used to go to casting director workshops at Act Now, and I would see your name on the list for stand-up, and I'm like, oh, I want to check it out. I never
It's so
did,
funny
but
that you mention Act Now because
Yeah.
I love Kennedine, and that's where this class originally started. It was like find your 5-minute sitcom set, and it was all for just actors, and I loved it because oddly enough, when it's all professional actors, they're really, really good.
Oh.
My class has evolved to it's anyone from anywhere can do it, and it's a different experience, but I really loved the Act Now days.
Right. Have you ever thought of doing like a specific actors workshop for like as a separate thing?
I really have been asked a lot of times because right now when people are going in for commercials or anything like that, it's like imperative that they have stand-up in their arsenal.
Right.
So I highly recommend that every actor who calls themselves an actor should do stand-up at least once.
Definitely. I mean, the theater is an actor's medium, and so and in LA you don't really audition for theater as much as you do for film and TV and commercials. So
Yeah, if ever.
But yeah, but that's really
Comparatively.
where your craft gets to shine is on the stage. And I was never in theater, but stand-up I did for 7 years, and I fucking loved it. There's nothing that's ever replaced that feeling.
There's really no feeling, and it's so funny because now that I'm a mom, I brought my kid with me today,
Yeah,
which
she's
is
so
so
cute.
sweet
Very
of you
cute.
to let me leave her. Is that each time I'm going, I love my class and I love the huge showcase they have at the end, but every time it's like Sunday night, I'm exhausted. I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this tonight. As soon as I get on stage and get that laughter, it is so addicting, and it is so, oh yeah, this is why I do it. It's so much fun.
It fills you up. It like rejuvenates you. All that tiredness, you're like, I have so much energy now.
It totally, and it's a gift. I mean, you can't get that from many other things. I mean, it's fun if I'll do like a guest star or a movie and you could show your kid something on the screen.
Yeah.
Oh, there's mommy. But it's not that same feeling.
Yeah.
Even on set, I wanted to talk to you about that too. The whole just sitting around on set all day is so
Oh, it's so
tedious
draining.
and tiring. Stand up, you can go out, you're in, you're out, you're done.
Yeah.
And it's not one or the other, but it's definitely something if you're stuck in this sort of guest star rut where you're sitting in your trailers 8 hours and performing for 1 minute.
Yes.
To get out there and have a little bit more power over what you're doing.
Yeah, what I really liked about stand-up too is at the time when I started, I was 20, and I
That's
was
so young.
I know, I was a baby, and I was constantly as an actress getting sent out for like one line hot girl at the bar role or like ditzy bimbo role, and that's fine, but it was so not me as a person. And stand-up was like the one place where I could showcase like who I felt I was as an artist and like what I found funny and how I wanted to perform it without someone being like, could you make it more bubbly? Can you bring up the energy? Fucking hated
Making
those
you,
notes.
but like smile the whole time.
Yeah.
I love.
And you're in like the perfect time right now for women because when I started back in the day, there might be 1 or 2 women on the lineup, but it was a very male-dominated world, blah, blah, blah. It's no
Yeah.
longer that. Now it's
Yeah.
50-50. In fact, most of my classes are mostly women.
Right.
And women aren't feeling like they have to be like a ditzy, blonde to get attention. They're really going against the cliches and really having really unique brands. And I think it's like the golden age for women comedy right now.
Awesome. I mean, even when I started in 2007, I was still almost always the only female, unless the headliner was female. But yeah, of the comics that were regularly opening, yeah, it was the same way. And I also felt like you really had to back then like desexualize yourself completely. So
or super sexualize yourself.
Yes.
So you had to
Yes.
make a choice. You either had to be the sexy. I had a mentor named Jason Strauss, who I love so much. You might have seen him. He's a filmmaker now. He just did Teacher of the Year and a couple other things. And he would always be like, Leslie, get yourself sexy. Do this, do that. And it wasn't until I had a show at a club called 4th and B in San Diego. It was like in front of 2,000 people. And I wore like a green T-shirt and jeans and my hair back in a ponytail. And I killed, and afterwards somebody came up to me and said this exact quote, and they said, you know why I like you? Because you're hot enough that the guys will watch you, but not too hot that the ladies will hate you.
that's exactly what it was. Yes.
And I just saw my mother-in-law come in, and she's going to have to get on this mic before the end of the day because she is a Hollywood star. It took them 8 hours to find this place.
It's LA. It's confusing here. We're in the valley. Yeah, it's very much like that. Like if you make the girls hate you, then you lose half the audience. And a lot of guys are bringing their dates, and they don't want to feel like there's any sort of competition.
But I'm very much in the mindset too of, as women, as men even, not even to be sexist and say just women, wear what you would wear on any given day. Don't be you every day, and then all of a sudden you're going up to do stand up and you're wearing a black cocktail dress. Like, it doesn't make any sense. My class especially is about making the audience feel like they're just at a coffee shop having a talk with you. Like, it's really casual. Like, oh, how'd this mic get here? This happens to be here. So to get all dolled up, unless you're like a cocktail waitress in Vegas, it makes no sense.
Or you're marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Which, by the way, 874 people tell me to watch that every day, and I have some weird aversion when I watch it, and I wonder why, but that's a deeper psychological
No,
question.
that was the same
You
way.
wonder why? Because you can't get into it.
I can't get into it.
No,
Good for you.
It was exactly the same for me. But then recently, I made myself watch it just because I wanted to just be a student of what is popular right now. Why are people liking this? We recently made ourselves get into Game of Thrones for the same reason.
We
never watched
ourselves.
one episode in a
Oh,
year.
we hated. We
You had
were
to watch
so
3 seasons to get into that shit.
Oh my god, it was horrible. But now we're addicted. But it is true. Once you get past the
I
first
appreciate
grueling,
Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and I see it as a drama
You
more
don't
than a
have to.
comedy.
Yeah,
you
me
know, I
too.
really
have
do.
to.
I don't see it as a stand-up.
It's not
I
a
see her
hilarious.
as an evolution of empowerment of a woman,
Yes.
which is terrific. But it's old school. I
you're
mean,
not
it's
into it.
it's not.
It's
I
old.
love that.
It is old. It's old school comedy because it's a period piece. So it's
Yeah.
like 1950s comedy and humor, but it's more about the woman empowerment thing. And also, I think it's like everyone's trying to find purpose. Like every character in that show is trying to find purpose. They all feel lost and confused. I think that's what's more relatable about it to me, rather than the whole stand-up part of it. But
Exactly.
I think when people hear
The narrative.
stand-up and lady stand-up
And Jewish
you
and
need
lady
to,
and yeah.
you need to watch Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. So I was not.
Well,
I
it
was
took
very
you 2
hesitant
seasons
to
to get
watch.
into it too.
It took me a season to get into
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
and then
okay.
the second season, I was like, oh, now I understand these people and what they want, and I want to see where their character
But it's
arc
also
goes.
the classic thing of like when you're a gynecologist, you don't want to come home and see a vagina. I'm teaching stand-up all day. I don't
No
want to come home
kidding.
and watch
True.
stand-up on TV.
Right.
So
yeah,
true.
Exactly.
Although I can watch stand-up all day, of course.
So today's topic I thought would be perfectly fitting for you, which is how to become funny from scratch, because you teach these classes, and we do get asked a lot, like through our email, the podcast email, like, how do I be funny? Like I have a good sense of humor, but I don't know how to translate that into me being funny.
Well, great question, first of all. My real philosophy on that topic is everybody who has a life is funny. And if you tell the truth, and the more that you tell the truth, the funnier you are. And instead of trying to be funny, coming up with jokes, in a weird way, almost go towards the things in your life that bring you pain, or bring things that you need to find the catharsis in, and that will find humor. Like, I'm not even joking. I'm an older mom. I've got a 4-year-old. She doesn't have school on Fridays. I'm driving around. I'm begging her grandparents who are in their, getting older, 70s, 80s, to come meet me at the studio. I mean, if you were to watch what just went on before this show, that's an episode of a sitcom. And the funny thing is, we're so tunnel vision. We're like, what's funny? What can I make? When it's always right under our nose. And for me, it's like just meeting you guys. Of course, we met on the set, and I was in love with you at first sight, and you were my student, and I
You remember that
you
very well.
I really remember it. But
Yeah.
the minute I look at you guys, I just see, obviously, you could see all the humor and all the guests that you have that come on, and all the pressure you have as a couple to be successful. And then the behind the scenes would be all the crazy fights and the fun stuff that would go on. But someone might say to you, oh, any couple could do that. That sounds so cliche. No, each person, in my opinion, when they're doing their comedy, has to get so truthful and so unique that nobody else could come and steal their comedy and do it themselves. And what people really respond to that when they take my class, because if you were 20 years older, you and I could potentially go out for the same role in something. Like, you're not my direct competition right now for a role, but you want to be able to be so specific, unique, and memorable that you're going to beat out the 6 other people in your category. And I think that's what, I've been in this business for so long, and for my money and for what I like, it's when you really feel like you're getting the inside scoop of someone's real life. A lot of people do comedy under a persona, or you can tell they're doing other people's material. That's all fine, but I don't really get into it unless I'm in on a little secret. And that's why I don't want to get political, but like, I used to love Louis C.K. I used to love, a lot of the edgier comics who would really tell the truth.
Right.
I think is what I prefer.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think it wasn't until like realizing what. So I have anxiety and depression and stuff.
You
and
do?
Yes. And I think that I wrote my
Sorry.
best. Oh, it's okay. But I think I wrote my best. That's kind of how it started. Was I started doing stand up because I was like, that was the outlet for
catharsis. Yeah.
Yeah. And I have a really dark sense of humor, so it worked because it was like everything that I was feeling, I turned it into a joke, and it was great because it like lifted that darkness because
you're sharing it, and you are getting. We all know what shame is. The only reason shame remains shame is because it's secretive and held close. When you let it out, it's no longer shameful.
Yeah.
And more likely than not, whatever you're feeling, 6 to 7 to 20 people in the audience are feeling. And the minute you share it and the collective sigh of relief and catharsis that comes up, you're not only getting it off your chest, you're helping them get it off their chest. And it's an energetic thing that changes. And even like I just ran into Brittany Furlan, who I love so much. She's a huge internet sensation and star. We were chatting about depression and anxiety. And it doesn't only pick certain people. I think everybody experiences it. And when you take the shame away from it, that's when the humor comes. And I'm a very, I don't encourage people to be self-deprecating, but myself, I'm extremely self-deprecating in my humor and when I'm teaching. And I think that really comforts people and allows people to be imperfect. Because when you're like, you can't sit there and be like, be funny. I mean, there's too much pressure. and sometimes people are the funniest when they've pretty much given up.
Yeah,
like I had one
sure.
student named Kosha Patel, who I love. I think she actually was a series regular on a pilot this year. She took my class. She was like my favorite. She's a beautiful Indian actress. And she's like, Les, love you, but I'm not going to do the show. I'm just not ready. I have a wedding to go to this weekend. I'm so stressed out. And I said, great. Go to the wedding, write down a couple things, let me know how it goes. She came back and killed with a whole set about the wedding and about how insecure she felt about being single, not this at the wedding. And the minute you give permission to not do it is when people enjoy themselves, because we're so hard on ourselves and we're so comparing with each other, especially as women. I think men do compare to each other too. But I love that you did that. I love that you used comedy as catharsis and therapy to get through your stuff, because then when you hear people laughing, it loses its weight and seriousness.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you helped me a lot with that. Where I remember coming into your class and just coming in with a bunch of bits,
Well,
you're
doesn't sound like
Yeah,
you
right?
at all.
But you're naturally funny. Not to be funny for a second.
Oh.
Of course, if I have a group of 15 people, not everyone's going to be funny. There are certain people that walk in and you get it. And you get the
that's very
timing.
nice. But I remember I was like, yeah, I got all these bits and shit. I can't wait to do all these bits. And then you were like, listen, those are great and all. You're being very nice about it. But you're like, just tell me something about you. And that's when I was able to get closer to the material, where you didn't realize that you're far away from your own stuff when you come up with these prepared jokes and stuff.
But it's also a defense mechanism. There's someone I actually want you to meet, because I think you guys could probably do a funny web series together. His name is Kyle Moore. Do you know him?
I don't.
Okay. He was just in my class. He's so good. He's actually a seasoned actor and has a Chris Farley energy kind of vibe. But he came in with all this prepared stuff, and I said to him, Micah, do me a favor. Just respectfully put that aside and try to write new material. And he's a dad of a 6-year-old, which you'd never think, because he's all like rustled up. He did this whole bit about trying to get in with the mom group at the kids' school, and it was the funniest fucking thing I've ever heard. And he wrote me such a heartfelt note saying, thank you so much for encouraging me to tell the truth, because it's funnier.
Yeah.
And I think there was another student I had, Jake, in this session, who actually is going to take it again in August because he didn't end up doing it. And he was just so aware. He's like, I'm relying on my poop jokes. I'm relying on my jokes. I don't want to do it. And I said, here's the deal. If that's your identity, if that's your brand, if you're the cute Jewish guy who does the poop jokes, commit to it and do it. Or respectfully put it aside and really get to know, because he's naturally funny. But any shtick is a crutch. And there are very famous comedians out there who are making money who are still on one shtick that's not even their authentic personality. And it can make money. It's okay. It could be profitable. But for the personal growth and individual satisfaction of doing it, if you can let go of the bits and really tell the truth, you'll be happier. But bits work for people too.
See, they deal with that on Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Yeah.
Because that big star
Oh my God,
comedian.
Nikki, we'll watch it, okay? Jesus.
She's like, she hates her life because she makes her money from this like crutch of like this shtick that she has of being this completely different character, this character from Queens.
Yeah.
And she puts on this
Yeah.
accent and stuff,
Yeah.
but she's never been to Queens.
Yeah.
And like when the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel meets her, it's like she's in this opulent like mansion and she's not this scrubby person. She puts on a fat suit to do her stand-up.
Well, that is such a
trope?
No, the parallel, because it is such an Ozian, Wizard of Ozian letdown when you see somebody and you see that their authenticity is fake. They're inauthentic. I almost say we should invite Elizabeth Gordon here because she loves Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. She'd probably want to talk about it for hours. We can if you want. She's right out there. But she'd be thrilled. She's hilarious. That's my pet peeve. I'm not going to name any names, but my real pet peeve is when somebody goes up there trying to be like somebody else or something else. I understand homage. I understand if, I love Sarah Silverman, I want to be like Sarah Silverman, or I love X, Y, or Z. But when somebody goes up and tries to mimic or be like that person, it is my biggest pet peeve.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree. So what would you say for people that have never done anything like this before? Like where do you have them start? Is it just by like learning themselves?
That's a great question. You want to come be my teacher's assistant?
Yeah.
I start with people doing what I call a personal inventory. Okay, so there's certain topics in our lives. Hey, if I give out these tricks, who's going to take my class? Just kidding. There's certain.
Take her class.
There's certain.
Or buy tickets.
You're so cute. Things in your life that you don't even think about. Like, it's so funny. I'll tell you, I was with my daughter Abigail this morning at the dentist, and she's laying there getting her teeth cleaned. And all of a sudden, I had this out-of-body experience. I'm like, I made that human being laying there. Like, we're so rushing from thing to next. We don't even think about things. So I have people sit down with a notebook and do a personal inventory. They have to talk about their job history, their education, their hopes and dreams, their biggest fears. I have them write down about what they call their spin cycle, meaning everybody has a different one. For some people, all day long, what do you think about all day long? Oh, I have to lose weight. I have to lose weight. Oh, I got to get a job. Oh, I need to get married. Oh, I need to have kids. Of course, you can have several. But what's the one thing that keeps coming back? Ultimately, that's going to be the first thing I'm going to have you start on. So if somebody's really desperate to have a relationship, I'd have them talk about their relationship journey. If someone's really desperate to lose weight or to do something like that, I would talk about their eating habits or as the brainstorming exercise to get them going, not as their set. And once they do that personal inventory, the fear of writing goes away because a lot of people initially are afraid to even put that pen on paper and start writing.
Oh.
And I really do encourage people to use an old school pen and paper rather than a computer because you just want to do stream of consciousness. There's a great book called Writing Down the Bones. I believe the author is Goldberg, who says, just don't let that pen stop. Even if you get frustrated, even if you stop, even if you get hungry for dinner, just write, oh, shit, I just thought of dinner. I need fried chicken. Back to where you're going. Because we are our own worst critics, and we self-edit to such a degree that the best gems could be lost because you're so worried about doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people are like that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
They wait for perfect instead of just going with what they got.
To be honest, that's the biggest obstacle I've seen in my students is perfection.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And actually, in The Artist's Way, that book, that was like their first exercise that they have all the people that read it do is that you have to do morning pages, which is you write 3 pages a day, and you just aren't allowed to stop moving the pen. It just has to go completely for 3 pages. And I tried doing that for quite a few months, and I did realize that it frees up mental space for me where
chatter.
Normally, yeah, exactly. You have all this chatter in your head, and it stops you from being able to like listen and observe the world because you have all your head's too full.
And it takes away your power. And that brings us to the next thing I do, which is have people practice something called active listening. Whether we're in LA or anywhere else, we're not listening to each other. We're waiting for the other person's mouth to stop talking so we could say what we want to say. And people have a really hard time. And we're all now addicted to our devices and instant gratification, myself included, no doubt. And just to be able to listen to somebody else and to constructively and altruistically help the other person versus focus on yourself is crucial to comedy. And you might think to yourself, why does it matter if I listen to somebody else? Comedy is a solo performance. I do not agree. I think it is a group sport, stand-up comedy. You should create your little groups of people that you workshop with. a crucial part of my class is that in between classes, people must workshop with each other without me. And between you and me, since nobody's listening, people in the class are as much, if not more, of a teacher to each other than I am. I'm just a facilitator for them to carve out time for themselves.
Right. I think that's a huge thing too, is that people don't carve out time for themselves to actually do it.
100%, and it's self-sabotage, myself included too. Because what a great feeling when you sit down with a cup of coffee or a drink, whatever your drink of choice is, a little margarita, and give yourself a moment to write. There is a freeing feeling of self-love there because we don't pay attention to ourselves because we figure, oh, if I don't pay attention, then nobody else will, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it does take a lot of self-esteem to do stand-up and to say, oh, I'm worth, people, whatever I have to say is worth listening to. But my biggest pet peeve, even though I've said that 3 times already, is when people say, oh, that person's not funny, that person's not funny. Anybody's funny.
Totally. And what was I just going to say? It had to do with, well, it doesn't matter. We'll come back to it.
Okay.
So what would you say like makes a really good bit? I know you talked about the truth. What makes a good bit?
Well, the funny thing is, I do not like classic joke structure where you're bringing the audience down one way and then it's that way. So I can smell that a mile away, and different teachers in town might teach that way of doing it. To me, a great bit is honest, truthful moments where you're actually living in the moment, which is to say, being a stand-up, you must integrate acting into it. Because while you're just having a conversation, the people watching want to feel you experiencing the embarrassment, experiencing the pain, experiencing the fear. And I don't even know why. I was up so early today, and somehow on my computer there was, on YouTube or something, I didn't look it up, but an Artie Lang bit about him while he was on Mad TV, dressed in prosthetics to be a pig, was so in need of some Coke that he had to go to like Duke's in Malibu at 8 o'clock in the morning, dressed like a pig to get the Coke. And I was riveted on every, I think I was like, I'll tell you, I'm a hot mess, but I'll tell you it was something funny. I like to make jewelry because it is calming to me too.
Oh, I make jewelry.
Nikki does that
Is
for the
it
same
wire?
reason.
Do you do wire wrapping? Or
I
what
do all sorts of things, and I'll tell you all about that. But I was literally listening to Artie Lang doing my jewelry, which is relaxing for me. And I was on every word, and it wasn't a structured bit where it was a joke. It was, oh shit, this guy's telling me the truth. I get to hear the truth. Fucking A. Because when I hear someone going like, what's with? I'm like, what am I, stupid?
Yeah.
But now I'm like, a guy in a prosthetic pig mask driving down the PCH trying to get Coke at 8:30 in the morning? Yes. It's new. It's real. I couldn't steal that bit and do it. There's no way I would have ever been in that situation. And so, there's so many different ways of comedy. I love Nick Swartzen too. You can watch him. He could talk about anything and you're on board. For me, what I respond to is literally authenticity and people telling the truth. The minute I feel like they're putting on some sort of act.
Me too.
Absolutely.
That's why I hear. So I just got on dating apps and I'm like, oh God, I gotta leave. I have to get out of here.
For sure.
It's funny that you bring that up too, because if there are hackneyed and cliche topics like dating apps, or hey, I was at the manicurist and they were talking about me, or whatever it is, I'll say, or I'm going to help the homeless people by redoing their signs. I'm going to say, listen, I've heard that 10,000 times. I'm not going to let you do that. I create a safe space in my class, but I'm not going to let someone think that they're the most innovative first person ever saying the same thing I've heard 300 times. Like, it's
you should get on all the new apps with that shit, because I swear half of Instagram videos is just people recycling old prior jokes and
all
kinds of old stand-up comedy jokes.
Instagram and Vine were like, this new quick comedy stuff.
Black people
really
are like this. White people are like this. It's like, man, guys, this shit is old. You don't even know it. But they think they're innovating it.
Because there's a new generation of audience that's never seen it before,
Exactly.
that they're like, oh, this person invented it.
And I always feel, and I'll say this, of course, everybody's different. I'll love a Mitch Hedberg set as much as a Zach Galifianakis set, as much as a Natasha Leggero, whoever you're watching. There's not one way to do comedy, but if it's too observational and unoriginal, it's a deadly combination. Like, if you're going to be observational, be Lewis Black, be so smart, and Garrison Keillor, whoever you want to say, who's somebody who thinks about the world like that. You can't be like, why do chicks want the guy to pay for the bill? Like, it's like, no, I can't. Like, no more. You have to find something that is authentically you. And sometimes I'm never inauthentic with my students. I always tell them like it is, and I can be tough as nails.
Yeah, you
That's
are.
a good
You're
teacher.
great. It's great.
And because they won't have the experience. If they get up there, they might get the laughs, but they won't have the growth.
And you'll harm them if you just say, okay, that's fine.
And they won't know why it was funny or why it doesn't work the next time they try to do it in a harder crowd. Something like that.
Yeah.
You know, when I first started, I was doing I was going through a breakup, so I wrote a lot about that.
Hey, there was no man before him.
No, not at all.
That's how I feel.
How dare you?
And then I talked about fucking in bathrooms. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Jesus, for the third week in a row with the same
I'm
bit.
just kidding.
And
I never did that more than 10 times. So yeah, I was writing a lot about that, and it was kind of like the material was based off that. And then I healed from that breakup because of stand-up. But then writing new material, it was like, oh no, where do I go now?
Also, when you're so happy, it's hard to find the comedy, and that's what people talk about all the time. When I was single, before I had my kids, when I was
depressed,
my log line, I encourage people to find their log line. What they never say about was the Ivy League loser. I could get handed everything on a silver platter and still fail, and to the point where I almost developed it into a TV show with Amber Thiessen, and of course it didn't go because it had to stay on brand. But then once I found my love, their son, and had my baby, I'm no longer the Ivy League loser because I kind of got everything I wanted, and I kind of have this.
You
less
lost
life,
your brand,
lost my brand, and that's okay. You reinvent your brand, and even some of your famous comedians have gone through a million different incarnations. You look at Kevin Hart; he's changed once he got married. He changed once he got famous, and Chris Rock and other people who have gone from being in the struggle of it all, the mire, the quagmire, to being super successful. They have to change. They have to change their bits.
And well, so for me, it was a hard time finding that. And I also have a theory about that whole when you're depressed, you create your best work, because I used to believe that, but I'll get to that. But Steve actually points out quite a few of my things that I don't think of as being funny bits or anything, because they're just real things that I'm stressing about. Like you were saying earlier. And I just randomly will talk about things like how when I was 6, I thought I was black, and it was Martin Luther King Day, and we learned about. I grew up in Santa Barbara, so I was one of the darkest people at my school, and I really thought I was gonna get assassinated. It was just a whole thing. It was very innocent. It wasn't political at all. It was just very innocent. I was the darkest kid at my school, and I thought that. I thought I was black.
But if you were in my class, I would start there with you, and I'd go, if this, then what? If you thought you were black. If you thought you were black, where else did this manifest? Did it manifest in the supermarket? Did it manifest in your dating life? Did it manifest with your family? And I think that's hilarious. And I also I was just on I was on Film Nerds podcast, and we got talking about race too. I'm often talking about race and stuff because I've always been a pioneer and fighter for black comics. Why? I don't know, because I'm a Jewish white girl. But I created a show called Hell Date that kind of that put a lot of black comics on the map, and I took a lot of pride in that. But the funny thing is, if it's real, it will be funny. And anything about race is funny. Meaning, I encourage any student I have to exploit their race, whatever it may be, because it's a commonality. Any other Indian girl who might have that same feeling, any other Pakistani person, any other Muslim person, any other black, white, Jewish, whatever your ethnic diversity is, don't shy away from it. Go towards it. I love that. I love that what you just shared with me. And it's funny because when you share something like that, it makes someone in the audience think of something in their life where they felt like they were black, or they felt literally when I'm looking for Abby's, you're going to love this, her public school, I'm going, of course, driving myself crazy, trying to do everything perfect because I'm a perfectionist too. And we go into the school, it's 99% ethnic. They invite me to go into the Martin Luther King, I shouldn't be hitting this, Martin Luther King assembly. I'm standing, they're singing Lean on Me. I'm standing in the back, literally tears streaming down my face, hating myself for my white privilege desire to put her into a school where there was more than one white kid. And it was so fucking funny. If it was a scene in a movie, just the craziness of this mom trying to get it right.
Yeah.
And what you just said made me think of that situation in my life. So it doesn't have to be a direct parallel, but I love that. You should work on that.
Relatable. Yeah. Well, that was one of the first things where someone was like, "Why don't you write about those kind of things, those stories?" And then Steve always points out just shit I do around the house that I I don't even think about. And he has we're now writing a series called Sitcom Wife, where because I just do I had a pet grasshopper because she followed me, and then we became friends, and she.
And it's all real, so it's
Well, I think couples, and this is great. I think couples is the best way to point out the humor in each other.
Yeah.
And in fact, I'm inviting you right now. Mark your words. I'm going to do a night of comedy with all couples, because me and my partner, who goes under a stage name, Jonathan Hayes, who, by the way, the Voyage LA, who I want to recommend you guys do, just did an article, and he wanted me to call him Jonathan Hayes, even though that's not his name in the article. It was so funny. You don't see you're funny until your partner reflects it onto you. You're only the funniest with your most intimate partner, and that is, oh my God, the humor and the comedy that comes from putting a mirror up to your ridiculousness as a partner. I think, I can't wait to see you guys show, but you guys have to come to the Improv and do our night.
Yeah.
Because I think it's all about brand, right? Mm-hmm. We all think we're one thing, and I teach this in class a lot, but how we're perceived oftentimes is much different than who we think we are.
Yes.
And I know you've mentioned this a couple of times, so I'm assuming the fact that you're sexy and a beauty and stuff, you don't want to be pigeonholed as that, and you want to sort of lampoon your ridiculousness or any depression and stuff so that it can balance that out. And I find that to be as much as a struggle as someone who doesn't feel good enough or pretty enough. So it's like, there's no winning.
Totally. And once you find ways to change, like, for example, in high school, I was like the fat goth kid, and I dated a guy who told me all of my flaws when he broke up with me. He told me I wasn't girly enough, told me I wasn't pretty, wasn't girly enough, had to lose weight, like all this stuff. So then I did all that, and then everyone pigeonholed me into this other new category that I had no business being in, and I was like, I don't know who I am. Like,
it's funny that you said that, because when I was just observing on set, when we were all on set, who am I looking at the audience? She played one of these gorgeous, one of three hot bridesmaids.
Thank you.
But you were so open and easy to communicate with, and no attitude. Like, I felt you made me feel safe on set, and I was like, girl, I got her right there. So I think people who get to know you after like 5 minutes will get your brand.
Good.
You, every woman, every man. But it's up to you for this career, or for if you want to be acting, to slam it down people's throat, because nobody's creative enough to figure it out.
Fucking
Absolutely.
Exactly. Well, plus you're a casting director.
Yeah,
what would you
casting
cast her as? You know what I'm saying?
Right,
like
right.
that's
Actually,
kind of the thing.
to be honest, even though you're young, I see you as the cool mom, like the mom that everybody.
That's what I want to be.
That's what you're just a couple years away. No, because I see you almost like you're not the same type as American Mom, that woman, but I love that woman. She used to play the sister on Molly. Mike and Molly.
Mike and Molly, sure.
Yeah.
You're not her same look, but your same feeling of, oh my gosh, I want to be best friends with that person.
Yay.
So that's the vibe you give me. You don't come off as intimidating.
Do you want to marry me?
Why not? I'm single. Just kidding. I've got
I'm done with this,
my
dude.
And what about my vibe, Leslie? Am I pretty cool too?
No, you are best friend, buddy, but you
You're
can
like
also
the
be a
schlub
leading
dad,
man.
like
but you know
that.
what?
Leading
no.
man?
Hey, listen, don't tell your wife, but you have sex appeal, but you're very funny. You're instantly funny.
Don't tell him
well,
now.
that's
I
fair
gotta
You're like
keep him
Bill
on my
Hader
thumb.
vibe. Like I would give you that category.
That's
Like you
a
could
good
be
brand.
Barry.
Yeah.
That's tight.
That's,
Do you
that's
watch
good
Barry?
branding. Yeah, we did.
I love
yeah.
Barry.
It's amazing.
The pitch for Barry is one of the best pitches I've ever heard for
But
anything.
the acting and the actual follow through, that's one show that I
Henry
can
Winkler
watch.
stole.
great.
Oh my
the
God,
show.
he's amazing.
I'm like, wow.
Yes.
When you're
This is
watching
really
Henry
good.
Winkler, you're like, I've met this guy so many times in this town. It's incredible.
Yeah.
The cliches are so on point. Even the lead actress with her jealousy and everything, it's so apropos. If people can just embrace the cliches and get it,
Yeah.
they take all the pressure off having to actually. What are
Avoid
we all
them.
fighting for?
Right.
Like, that's the joke. Like,
Exactly.
I mean, we all want money. We all want the house on the hill. Of course, financially, everybody would like to be happy and
I actually
successful.
don't want to live in the hills. It's such a pain in the ass to park.
I agree. I'm not kidding. You think I'm joking?
No, I'm not
I go
kidding.
to my rich friends in the hill, driving
too.
back down to Ventura Blvd. I'm like, who's got time?
If you host a party in the hills, you're such a dick, dude. Because we all got to park up there, and I'm like, are you kidding me, dude? I don't want to do this shit.
You think
like, give me a voucher for Uber?
If you were hilarious, if you were my therapist, you'd say, Leslie, you might be justifying it, but I'd much rather, I'm not kidding, much rather live in a little 2-bedroom apartment where I could jet around and do everything than be up in some
Well, let's
isolated
not go crazy. I don't want to live in no 2-bedroom. Let's not go. Absolutely not.
Let's not live with
that
the
good thing I'm
peasants.
just married
Yeah,
your
you know
wife.
what I'm saying? Yeah.
And on that note, we're going to take a quick break. Hello, we're taking a break from ourselves to have ourselves talk about ourselves. So thanks for listening to our podcast.
We really hope that you like, favorite, and subscribe. But most importantly, you give us 5 stars on the podcast app that you are on.
And give us a cool review if you like it, because we like you and we hope you like
but
us.
even if you don't, just give us 5 stars anyway because we need
You
it.
sound so
No,
desperate.
listen, we really need
You
it.
sound so
No, look, maybe
desperate.
Look, it's a tough time out there
Please
for
help
podcasters.
my husband. He's very sad.
If we don't get 5 stars, dude, you don't even know what's gonna come down on me, man. I owe money. Listen,
okay.
I'm in deep, dude. I gamble.
Okay, no, we're
Look,
done.
I need to win.
Thank you for listening. We hope you like this. We really appreciate your ears listening
I'm
to
going back
this.
To the tables tonight. I'm gonna get our money
Yeah,
back.
no, you're not.
I'm gonna get it
You're
back.
not. Okay,
I swear.
that's enough. Enough out of you. And we're back.
Welcome back. Real quick, I just want to plug my movie Funny Story out now on iTunes.
I can't wait to see it.
Oh, yeah, it's out right now. So you can get on iTunes, you can get on Apple TV or whatever device you got. Yeah. And Nikki's in it.
I mean, it came out 8 weeks ago.
But right, because we're stockpiled.
Yeah.
Well, whatever.
But you can go. You can still go and download it.
Technically, it's out today, but
you can still go and download it.
True.
Go watch it.
Oh, can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah.
I know a lot of people don't involve their spouses or loved ones in creative projects. Do you guys love including each other in stuff?
We love it.
Oh, yeah.
We work together on like almost everything.
Yeah.
And I have heard that a lot. I've had a lot of older couples that were like, we tried to go in business together, never do it, and you'll hate each other. It's only made us like each other more.
I think it causes more problem if you don't give your partner an opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have different strengths and weaknesses, so we balance each other pretty well. So like Steve is a screenwriter. He writes a lot. I write, but I don't screenwrite. I act more than I write. He also acts, but he writes more than he acts.
Yep.
So it balances out that way. We both host things, but we have different hosting styles. Like you said, like you find your own brand and style. So there's very distinct qualities that would separate us from each other, where we'd never feel like there's any sort of competition or
For sure,
anything
never,
like that.
never.
And we also
I
just
want
like
her to win, and she
bantering.
wants me to win. So.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
the
That's
best
what makes it easy.
partnership, unlike
Yes.
these guys.
Yeah, that's bad.
Yeah.
Well, don't get us wrong. We're really competitive, and
Oh, yeah.
and we'll slaughter each other if that's the game that we're playing.
Right.
But
no, right. But at the end of the day,
each
success makes the other person happy, and that's the only way to
Yes.
survive.
yes, and it just makes your relationship
No.
even better. So we talked about some hacky things like hacky material, dating. I feel like guys always go for masturbation. Girls always go for dating and tampon stuff. But are there any other pitfalls that you see like amateur comedians fall in and what to avoid?
My one thing that we kind of, stopped on this for a second, is the comparison comedy. Black people versus white people, men versus women. If I was a cat or if I was a dog. Like anytime where you're polarizing anything, I think it can get into cliche town.
Yeah, for sure.
Totally.
And also from like Elizabeth said, anything too dark or gross or poop or intentionally shocking, I'm not into.
Yeah. And I always felt like, I think the worst thing for me is like, don't feel like you have to be the funny one all the time,
Yes.
because sometimes I feel like when you first start doing comedy and you're like, I'm a comedian or I'm a stand-up, people are like, well, why aren't you funny? Well, why aren't you being funny? And then you feel this pressure to have to be funny all the time. And that, I think, leads to hack material and bits and like being prepared to say funny things all the time. And I would say don't do that.
I agree, but I will say one thing which you might either take or leave.
Yeah.
I do believe high energy and quickness will get you better results than extreme slowness, because there are few people who could manage it and who could do so great doing it. But I just saw, I don't know if I should say the name, a couple comedy specials on Netflix where they're going so slowly that it's unbearable. Even people that I adore.
Yeah.
Somehow they came up with this concept like, let me go so slow to make the audience kind of wait to draw it out. It does not work.
So you're talking like baseline, like higher energy works better than low energy.
But not even personality wise. If you're a bitch, be bitchier. If you're nice, be nicier. Meaning, meaning, Johnny Carson, who was one of the greatest talk show, hosts of all time, was like, if it's colder, it's funnier. Not to be that crass of saying that easy, but if you're trying to keep people's energy, a crowd or even one person after a long day, you have to have a heightened energy more than theirs. Like, and I will say, you can be mellow. Like, I love Amy Schumer. She's very chill and very vibe. I love certain people, but then there's like, I love Tig Notaro. She's a very slow going, but her energy is high.
For sure.
So like, I think I just saw Anthony Jeselnik's special and I love him so much, but he must have been coached to go so slow, and I was like, pulling my hair out, even though he's brilliant and I love him. And it's not about slow or fast, it's just about pacing. That's so funny. I just negated myself, but I'm saying like Gary Goldman, I love him so much, he goes slow, but you have to up the energy from your audience. The audience can't have more energy than you.
Totally. Oh, you're talking more about performance. I'm talking more about in life.
In life,
so
yes, the funniest people are not the class clowns or the people that are funny at the party.
right. And I think people misconstrue that because I remember just so many like frat boys when I was like in college age. I didn't actually go to the college. I worked at the Chili's next to the college, but
That's funny.
All the coworkers were college guys, and there'd be like the funny frat guy who's so fucking funny, and then like people were like, you should do stand up, and I'm like, that guy's gonna fail at stand up, and then he did because
some of my dearest friends who are so situationally funny when they're the funniest one at the party, they do not want to do stand up because they run the risk of not getting the same reception that they normally get.
Yeah.
And it is two different muscles.
it's completely different.
Yeah.
And so for people that are listening, that maybe if you don't want to be a stand up, but you're just trying to like be more funny in normal life, I'd say listening and being able, I think that's how you build quick wit, is by listening to what's going on around you
And
being
observing.
able to play off of that moment instead of being like, oh, I'm a funny guy with funny things to say, you know, like I'm funny all the time and I'm super wacky and high energy. It's like, no, you need to take it down a notch.
It's so funny. I just think everybody's so different. I do genuinely believe everyone should try stand up. I mean, whatever you are. And it's so funny. Why I love my classes, I had given a scholarship. There was a girl who lived on Skid Row, and they made a post in the actors group. Does anybody know of an acting class that would be willing to donate a class to this girl? And I said, well, I don't teach an acting class. I teach a stand up class, but I'm happy to give her a spot in the class. She was so beautiful, so funny, so hilarious, talking about the reason she lives at their women's shelters because she saw it on Keeping Up with the Kardashians. I mean, like hilarious stuff. It's her growth through the class of self-confidence and everything, it elevated her to so much. I believe every single person should try stand-up because all stand-up is self-exploration, self-inventory. That's all it is.
Thank you so much for coming on our show today, Leslie and Elizabeth and all of the family.
Yes, we tried.
That's going to be good.
Yeah.
And we just do the thing at the end of the show called Final Thoughts, where we just say like our last final thought about the topic, which is being funny from scratch.
Tell the truth and dive deep.
Yes.
Go for the stuff that you would be normally too afraid to talk about, what they call be as self-disclosive as possible. Go for the stuff that you wouldn't normally share.
Yeah, like if it feels scary and you're like, I don't want to do it, and your whole body's like, let's not do this, go do it.
Correct.
Yes.
I say carry a big bag of props with you wherever you go, and just be ready to go with those props. And people really, really enjoy that.
I say get good at listening, because even if you have a killer set that you love, like gets laughs and stuff, it doesn't necessarily work the same way for every single crowd. So the better you can hone your listening skills, the more that you can learn how to deliver and get your timing right, depending on who you're talking to. And I think listening's probably the one thing that people forget about. Like they just think it's not that important, but it's really important. And so if you want to be funny,
being said, stand-up really is a conversation between you and the audience.
Yes. And when you listen, I feel like you catch more of the things about yourself, all of your truths, the truths about the world, all those observational things. You catch more of that when you really hone your listening skills. So do that. Also, Leslie, where can they find you?
They can hit me up on my Insta, which is Leslie Wolf is the photo bomb, or they can email me at lesliewolf@gmail.com. I also have a page on the Hollywood Improv page. I have a show coming up June 30th and one July 14th. I don't know when this is airing, but if anybody wants free tickets who listens today, they can come to the show.
Go email Leslie. Also, how do they sign up for one of your classes?
They just email me and they sign up. It's funny. I've never advertised. Usually the class is just full and packed from every showcase.
Wow.
People see it and then they want to do it.
Word of mouth, man.
Awesome.
That's where I heard of you.
I really love that.
Thanks.
That's awesome.
I love being with you guys today. It was
you
so
too.
fun.
Good
You guys
class.
are doing a great job.
Thank you so
thank you.
much.
We love
That's all I
having
try
you.
to do. It's a good job. Well, if you have a topic that you would like us to talk about, you could email us podcast at Nikki.Limo. I must have gotten your Gmail mixed in there.
Exactly.
But yeah, podcast at Nikki.Limo. Find us on Instagram, Should They Don't Tell You, and on Twitter, where Should They Don't. And we're on
our
YouTube.
Angel Fire. And we'll see you guys later.
Bye.
Thank you.